Okay, let's talk about the trial that's currently happening in Texas, where a bunch of women are suing the state for their draconian abortion bans. So let's go right to the article. Samantha Cassiano, who gave birth to a baby who lived just 4 hours, broke down and became physically ill on the witness stand as she told the story of her doomed pregnancy in an Austin, Texas courtroom on Wednesday. Her husband, Louis Villasana, rushed to the front of the courtroom to help her during a hearing in a case challenging the abortion bans in Texas. Cassiano was one of 3 women who gave dramatic testimony about their pregnancies in a hushed and spellbound courtroom in the case brought by the Center for Reproductive Rights. The case, on behalf of 13 patients and 2 doctors, argues that the medical exemptions to Texas's laws are unclear and unworkable for doctors in ways that harm patients. They also say that the state has done nothing to clarify its laws. The case is thought to be the first time the experiences of women have been heard in open court since the Supreme Court ended the constitutional right to abortion last June. In Wednesday's proceedings, which continue on Thursday, lawyers for Cassiano and other plaintiffs asked the judge to temporarily suspend the bans for people who have medical complications in their pregnancies as the case proceeds. State Attorney General Ken Paxton's office is asking for the case to be dismissed. And I'd love to know on what grounds he wants it to be dismissed. And these bans shouldn't be temporarily suspended for people with medical complications. It should just not be enforced, because this is what we have been saying from the very beginning, that doctors and women know better about how to deal with problem pregnancies, which the anti-abortion advocates are like, doop-de-doop-de-doo, the only women getting abortions are skipping down the aisle, just excited to have an abortion because reasons. So they're so hung up on this narrative that the people who get abortions are horrible, horrible people who only think of themselves, are selfish. They just decided one day they didn't want to be pregnant, or whatever myth you subscribe to. And now they're being confronted with women who don't fit that mold. And I'm really curious what the Attorney General is going to use as an excuse. Because if he uses as an excuse that, well, this is a rare exception, most women just, giddily go down the street to get an abortion. Number one, that's wrong. And even if there were women who did, does that justify putting these women through pain? All right, the benches in the roomy brand new courtroom at the Travis County Civil District Court were filled with reporters, plaintiffs, and their supporters, including several husbands. Members of the anti-abortion rights group Texas Alliance for Life were also in attendance. And I also want to point out that one line, including several husbands. That's another myth that anti-abortionists seem to have. This idea, these forced birthers seem to have, this idea that women just make decisions on the fly without, what about the poor husband who didn't have a chance to become a father? Well, there are plenty of husbands that do support their wives, because they do not see them as their property. They see them as human beings who are going through pain. And they actually give a shit about that. I'm sorry if the men on your side see women as nothing but glorified blow-up dolls, but plenty of men, if not most men, actually see women as human beings with feelings and with desires, and who can feel the pain of losing a child that was wanted. And that's what people do not get. Most of these people, they want to be pregnant. It's not that they do not want to be pregnant, but for whatever reason, they need an abortion. And it is not up to some ding dong across the country telling them that, or even across the state, telling them whether they can or cannot have a medical procedure done because it violates some morality that they seem to have. All right. 8 attorneys representing the patients and doctors challenging the law on the other. Okay, that was not a complete sentence. On the other side of the room, 2 attorneys represented defendant Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Judge Jessica Mangrum, elected as a Democratic judicial candidate in 2020, presided. Oh, good. Hopefully she won't take shit. Paxton, currently suspended, that says a lot about him, faces an impeachment trial in September over allegations of bribery and abuse of power. You don't say. During hours of emotional testimony, the courtroom felt tense and quiet. Cassiano, who first told her story to NPR in April, was so overcome as she described her experience, she cried, coughed, and gagged in the witness box. The court was adjourned for a recess at that point. When it was back in session, Cassiano described what it was like to give birth to the daughter they named Halo. She was gasping for air, Cassiano said. I just kept telling myself and my baby that I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. I felt so bad. She had no mercy. There was no mercy there for her. And that's the other thing. These forced birthers claim so badly that they're doing this for the baby, that they're doing this because they value life, and that they think life is sacred. I'm sorry. Um how exactly is this proof of how sacred life is? This baby died within hours of being born. All this did was put her in pain for that brief moment she was alive. And I mean absolute pain. I mean, anyone who's, gasped for air knows that is not fun. So, where is this life is sacred? Wouldn't you rather have this mother give birth to a healthy child? I mean, this is traumatic. Who knows, she might be afraid to get pregnant again, because if for no other reason, if something bad happens in the pregnancy, she's gonna not be allowed to have an abortion, or hopefully she'll be able to get out of the state this time to have an abortion. I do not see how people saying that, oh, but think of the poor innocent baby, how they can justify that. How is this justified? Oh yes, it's a poor innocent baby, but so you can't abort it, but you can make it suffer for the brief time it's alive. I'm sorry, what? That doesn't sound compassionate. Not at all. People in the courtroom wept as Cassiano spoke, including an attorney for the state of Texas. Well, it's good to know that at least someone on the other side actually possesses emotion, so that's good. I would hope that this means that this particular attorney was just doing his job and just being, because he was hired, or she, because they were hired, but, not that they actually agreed with it. Because, fun fact, lawyers do not have to agree with what they're arguing. Because it's simply that everybody deserves the right to be defended. It's in the Constitution. So even if you're like, oh, hell no. If nobody else, somebody's got to do it. Anyway. So I'm not going to fault the lawyers for defending Ken Paxton because, they're just doing their job. Something that the Republicans on that side should probably, understand a bit more of, since they seem to think that ideology should trump the job. But I digress. The other women with complicated pregnancies who testified were Amanda Zurovsky and Ashley Brandt. Both cried on the stand as they described extremely intimate details of their health and their ordeals losing wanted pregnancies, which is something nobody should have to do. I mean, it was bad enough that they had to do this the first time, and now they have to relive it? That is just horrible. This is like cartoon villain level horribleness. Brandt was able to travel out of Texas to receive a selective reduction for a twin whose skull had not developed properly. Ugh. Zurovsky's water broke too early, but she was denied induction or abortion. She went into septic shock and was in an intensive care unit for 3 days. And somehow people are justifying this. How is this possible? This is horrible. This is just proof that wanting to protect innocent life or whatever the hell they're saying, or that this is just about them being pro-life and life is sacred, blah blah blah. Explain how you think that this is worshiping life as sacred. Because you're sure as hell don't give a shit about the child, even though you claim you do, because there is no way in hell that this fetus is going to be viable. And plus you're putting the mother's life in danger. I fail to see how this is showing sanctity of life. It's not. Assistant Attorney General Amy Pletcher, representing Paxton's office, objected frequently as the women described their experiences with pregnancy complications that were left untreated in Texas. Objected to what? That bad things happen and you don't want to hear it? She argued that it was not relevant to discuss past medical history. I'm sorry, what? Do you not understand how medical history works? You need to know someone's medical history to understand what's happening to them today. This is a perfect example of why lawyers should keep as far away from the medical profession as possible, because this is proof that she has no idea how medicine works. All right. But the judge allowed the testimony to continue, probably because the judge actually possesses a brain. Pletcher also asked each patient witness if Attorney General Ken Paxton had personally denied them an abortion. Each said no. Do you not know how laws work, bitch? Now, I'm going to assume that it's entirely possible she doesn't agree with the law either, but, she has no choice. But she is the Assistant Attorney General. So I'm going to say she's drunk the Kool-Aid. Molly Duane, the attorney for the Center for Reproductive Rights, attacked the defendant's arguments laid out in a court filing in June that none of the patient plaintiffs have the right to sue the state. Okay, the legal concept known as standing. Why they all live in Texas? Why do they not have the right to sue? In the document, the state argued that the woman's past harm is the fault of their doctors and their future harm, such as damage to their reproductive health, is hypothetical. What the actual fuck? Okay, all I can say is if you can, in good faith, make that argument, may I suggest you never go to the doctor ever again, because that is not how medicine works. Is it possible that they could have had bad health care? Absolutely. Doctors aren't infallible, and there are horrible ones out there. I will agree to that. However, how is any of this the doctor's fault? I would love to see how they can pretzel themselves into, because they have to show that this is because of shoddy healthcare, not because of reproductive health. Because, I'm sorry, you can't just say that and it's true. And since none of these dimwits have a medical degree, I'm going to say they're just pulling shit out of their ass and hoping that they'll be believed because, well, obviously, it's amazing. Doctors, they're blaming doctors for bad health care if women need an abortion. But they blame doctors for providing an abortion when women need it. Even if it's a different doctor. I mean, it's always the doctor's fault, obviously. If something bad happens, it has to be the doctor's fault. It couldn't be the law. Nope, that couldn't have been it. These people are so deep in denial that problem pregnancies happen that they just can't accept that it's not the doctor's fault. These things happen. Unfortunately, they do. And to blame the doctors for every bad thing that happens? Come on. What the hell? Duane countered, does the state think that the only person who would have standing to challenge an abortion law is a woman who comes to court with amniotic fluid or blood dripping down her leg? That's good. I like that one. That's not a visual I want. I want that visual out of my head. During her cross-examinations, Pletcher repeatedly asked the witnesses for the names of their doctors. Okay, so let's go on a witch hunt for the doctors now. Oh my God. Abortion bans in Texas carry civil and criminal penalties, up to life in prison for doctors. The state laws do not penalize women. Okay. So, let me get this straight. You do not see women to be the bad guys for having an abortion. They're just poor, innocent people who were duped by doctors. I'm sorry, this isn't just something that one day a doctor says, you know what, I think you need an abortion. Okay. Either you're claiming that doctors are pure evil, or that women are the dumbest fucking people on the planet. Because what the hell? That is not how this works. Patients and doctors talk about, okay, this is what we found in these tests, and this is what's recommended, and, and give them options. Unless it's, well, there's only one way out unless you want to deal with the consequences. which, I'm sure there are women who probably would want to do that. Not many, but I'm sure there are some. But at the same time, this is just more proof that the people who are trying to pass these laws and who defend these laws have absolutely no clue how medicine works, because that is not what happens. The final witness who testified Wednesday was Dr. Damala Karsan, one of the physician plaintiffs in the lawsuit. She described the case of a patient whose fetus had a fatal condition who had to drive 14 hours to get an abortion out of state. I feel like my hands are tied. I have the training, the skill, the experience, even the facilities to provide the care, and I'm unable to provide that care, and it's gut-wrenching. Lawyers for Texas were especially aggressive in cross-examining Carson. Attorney Jonathan Stone repeatedly questioned whether she was familiar with the exception language in Texas's law prior to the current laws. He also questioned her about various policies of the hospitals where she works. In its June filing, the attorneys for Paxton's office referred to Carson as an abortionist rather than a physician or an OBGYN. Now, that should tell you everything you need to know about the people who are defending these laws. Because abortionist, that is not the only thing she does. She takes care of reproductive health of the woman. That is not, I'm sure if she had her druthers, she would never perform an abortion, because people who are pro-choice do not want abortion. They just know that sometimes it has to happen. And it's none of anybody's goddamn business whether that abortion takes place or not. It's the woman's, the doctor's, and whatever support system the woman has. Those are the only people who should have any say. Not some legal eagle who seems to think that because their shit doesn't stink, they must know medicine as well. I mean, what the hell? In a press conference after the hearing adjourned, plaintiff Amanda Zurovsky said she was shocked by the callousness of her cross-examination. I survived sepsis, and I don't think today was much less traumatic than that, she said. Wow. The hearing continues for a full day on Thursday, which was yesterday. I haven't gotten any updates. After it concludes, Judge Mangrum could rule on the temporary injunction and motion to dismiss at any time. Now, seriously, you could look at someone who got sepsis and it's the doctor's fault? How dumb do you think women are? Really? How dumb? Because, I'm sorry, women who get abortions aren't doing this because they're too dumb to know that they don't need it. It's because they need it. Anyway, that is all I have for this article. Hopefully I'll get an update on this, but it's just so disgusting how people are defending this law and basically telling these women who went through a horrible situation just to either get an abortion or to deal with the aftermath of not being allowed to get an abortion. And look at them and say, oh, the reason this all happened is you're fucking morons and, just blindly listen to your doctors. Obviously, they pulled a fast one on you. I'm sorry, no, that is not what happened. And the fact that you're so much in denial that problem pregnancies actually do happen that you're going to, you know, sound like an absolute, like she said, callous human being is just mind-boggling. I mean, for what? You Is it because that you just can't bring yourself to admit that problem pregnancies happen and that sometimes abortions are needed? And you think that this is some sort of slippery slope that it isn't? Or are you so invested in this narrative that you're just like la 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 la, I can't hear you. I honestly do not understand how you can hear these stories and still think, oh, well, these are just poor innocent victims. It's the doctor's fault. They're horrible people. No, no. I mean, yeah, there are some bad doctors. That's true. But you know who else? There are bad people in every group, like lawyers. I just cannot understand how anyone can hear these stories and not feel for these women, because to tell them, oh, it's your doctor's fault and you're just poor innocent victims, that is not sympathy. They had to go through this. You made them go through this. So, and to know, and for the doctors to be legal scholars, I'm sorry, what? If the law is so complicated that the average person isn't sure whether they're going to get into trouble if they do something, in this case an abortion, well, then whose fucking fault is that? It's certainly not the doctors. And this is not the only doctor that has this question. So if there's so many doctors who are questioning what the law says, maybe there's something wrong with the law. Or here's a better idea. How about you don't tell doctors how to practice medicine? The fact that you referred to this woman as an abortionist instead of as a doctor, or her specialty, an OBGYN, tells me you don't see these people as doctors, because that would imply that it's medical care. And you cannot bring yourself to admit that it's medical care because you are so invested in abortions being bad, because we cannot have gray thinking. Everything has to be black or white. Abortions are bad. Women who get abortions are just poor innocent victims who were suckered into getting an abortion. And problem pregnancies don't exist. And if there are problem pregnancies, well, obviously the doctor did something wrong. No! How many hoops do you have to go through before you accept that sometimes things happen? And because things happen, the best and possibly only good option is an abortion. And it is not up to you to make that decision for a woman. It is up to them to, in accordance with their physician and with whatever support system. Because sometimes things go horribly wrong like this. Other times it could be an iffy situation, and yeah, you can discuss it with your doctor, with your support system, if that's a significant other, if it's somebody else. Absolutely. You can have these discussions. But the fact that there were husbands in this courtroom supporting their wives goes against this narrative that men are just, that they're forced to not become fathers because the bitch woman just decided she wanted to have an abortion. No, that is not how any of this works. And you just are desperately trying to show that either or both, A, you're desperate to show that abortions are never needed and that women are just these poor innocent victims, or men are poor innocent victims of the bitch women. Which one is it? It can't be both. So yeah, it is just, oh, that just really pisses me off, and I really hope that the judge deems that there should at least be a temporary stay, and I really do hope that this goes to the Supreme Court. Oh wait, our Supreme Court sucks, so scratch that. I do not trust our Supreme Court as far as I can throw them. But I really hope that not only is there a temporary stay, but it leads to people questioning how messed up does this law have is this law that so many people do not know how to interpret the law. That and that the law was meant to be that way, because if it wasn't, why would you go out of your way to try to prove that problem pregnancies do not exist? If this wasn't all about um if this wasn't about oh, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, yeah, how is this, you if the law was so self-explanatory, then you're accepting that problem pregnancies exist and that there is parts of the law that allow for abortions for problem pregnancies. But you cannot say that and at the same time try to deny problem pregnancies exist. If you do that, you're contradicting yourself. So pick one. Either problem pregnancies exist and that the law is there and these doctors are just too stupid to understand the law, or problem pregnancies don't exist. You gotta pick one. You can't do both. But anyway, I think I've covered as much as I can on this one. So I will see you guys in the next video.